Guys, we had a lost episode last week. Well, not really lost. Some video footage was...
The audio is up, but Logan's video is absent, so you don't want to just see me talking.
Right.
In fact, we were just talking about your vacation the whole time anyways.
I know. That's what's so ironic about it, is that it was a lot of my stuff, and that's the video footage that was lost.
I wish that we had it, and I'd like to touch on what we talked about just a little bit. Like the TLDR, the too long didn't read, was you went on a vacation with two of your babies, your family, to France.
Yeah.
And for me, it was so interesting because I'm at the age where a lot of my friends are choosing to have kids or they're choosing not to have kids.
Right.
Right. And I've noticed that the ones that are not choosing to have kids or the ones that are fearful of having kids, vacation is one of the core pillars or the core objections as to why they don't think having kids is a good idea. It's like, you feel like you're going to lose a sense of agency over your life. And what you shared, I thought was really interesting, was that, vacation becomes different.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest theme of it, is it's not necessarily better or worse. I mean, yeah, if you want to get mental about it and start nitpicking and judging it and being like, oh, well, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, whatever, and then claim that is making it a worse trip because you have kids, then so be it. But it's just different. Like Casey and I from the get-go were like, we're going to travel with our kids. We're not going to be trapped at home for the first 4 years of their lives worrying if they're going to be okay on a plane or a flight. Are they going to sleep? Are they going to cry? What are time changes going to be like? Which, truthfully, people, like, kids are adaptable and they don't even have a concept of time. They just know when they're tired and when they're not.
Yeah.
And so you just go and, we would just push them and they would take naps and do the thing that they do. But the big thing from it is like, you have to get over those first few hurdles of just your mind telling you, oh, this is going to be so hard. I'm worried about how they're going to respond or act on the plane. Are people going to look at me or judge me? Or what if my baby cries? Yeah, those things are going to happen. But if you're able to just maintain a level of like emotional stability through the whole thing, they actually adapt really quick. They figure it out. And if they see that you're like stable through all this, then the kids are going to be also. Of course, you're going to have your moments where they're a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. They're toddlers. But you can actually move through them fairly quickly.
I laugh because you said it's not that bad, and it's so funny. It reminds me of the first time I got punched in the face.
I remember the first time I got punched.
I was just telling Heather, I was like, I hope that our son gets punched in the face early in life so that he realizes it's not that bad.
Totally.
It's like so liberating.
It is. I mean, don't get me wrong, my cheek hurt for 4 months. Like, I think I maybe chipped something up there, but it didn't like destroy me.
Yeah,
it actually, the shocking part was how bad it hurt the person's hand. He was like, dude, I think I broke my fingers. Like,
yeah, it does hurt.
It does hurt. It's not like the movies where it's just like, you just keep punching people.
Yeah.
Like, no. Anyway, I think that's such a good analogy, is like, you're going to get punched in the face a little bit on the trip. Yeah. Sure. Literally I got punched in the face by Atlas a few times.
That's it.
But you'll get through it. It's just like, be cool, be chill, maintain your level of emotional stability, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, it's like the essence of the vacation changes, like the reward of the vacation changes. The way that you've described the memories is that you're not going to remember the challenges of the vacation. You're going to remember the memories that you had with the kids, the photos that you posted, like their faces. You almost don't look at anybody except the two kids.
Totally.
Because they're in pure joy.
Pure joy.
Granted, they were Alice was at the airport scratching your face off, but you had to get through those moments to get to the pure joy moments as well, right? Like,
exactly.
And so it becomes worth it. And for people that I find in general a fear of things changing that you currently enjoy is resistance towards evolution. And that's never a winning battle.
No.
Right? And so, yes, it may be hard. It likely will be hard. For example, my mom loves to, when she hears this resistance amongst new parents or soon to be parents, she loves to brag that she traveled internationally with me when I was 2 months old. She's like, you just do it. And then you realize, and then it just becomes your normal, and
Especially
you can do
at
it.
2 months, like everything before pretty much a year is actually really easy because they're just babies and they just want to sleep and whatever.
Yeah, but you're just scared.
Yeah.
Because it's new.
Because it's new.
So,
It became easier once. No, I mean, it was pretty easy with Atlas. Don't get me wrong. There was definitely a couple flights where we're like, ugh, what do we do here? He's crying a little more than normal. And then you figure it out.
yeah, I don't think the takeaway is that don't worry, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be
No,
easy.
it's not.
Like, no, don't worry. It's gonna be hard, and you're gonna be okay, and it's gonna be amazing.
Exactly. I mean, as is everything that's hard. Like, God, I know I was notorious for this. You just worry about it and you think it's going to be so much harder than it actually is. And it never is that hard.
Totally.
It never is, especially just when you're in the thick of it. Like, for example, when Atlas is like out of his mind, sleep deprived, we're in this small airport, we're at the gate, they won't let us go back through security. It's jam-packed with people. It's like 4 or 5 p.m. at night, hasn't had a nap yet. He's punching me in the face, scratching my eyes. I pass him off to mom. She goes in the bathroom. He's screaming, comes back out, passes him off to me, and boom, he's asleep. Sure, that 5 minutes probably felt like 2 hours to me in the moment. But once he fell asleep, it was like, okay, cool. That moment's over. You know,
Past.
It's past. Whatever.
I find that a lot of fear about goals is very similar, right? Like, you know that you want to think, you want to get in shape, you want to start a business, you want to change your job, you want to go on a trip, but the timing is not right now, right? Like, I need conditions to change in such a way that then I'll be ready to pursue the thing that I want. It's the same thing as this. It's like, no, you pretty much need to start now, and the imaginary perfect conditions falling into place will never happen, so you'll never get started, right? And so you could wait for your kids to grow to an age where it'll be perfect. They'll be great humans, and we can go and enjoy the experience then. But you would have missed out on, who knows, 10, 15, 20, 30 years of travel experiences you could have had.
And who knows if at, say, 8 and 6, we take them on their first trip. Guess what? I still don't know how they're going to be on a plane. They could be worse than they were at 3 and 1. Who knows?
Yeah,
You know?
I think it's just like it's just a losing mental framework.
It is.
You're only robbing yourself of experiences.
And I look at that experience, those 2 weeks, it's such a I feel like we got 2 years of experience as parents in those 2 weeks because we were willing to do that hard thing and go over there and travel with them. Like, you get put in so many different situations where me and Casey have to adapt on the fly, figure it out. Also go through these moments of where me and her are maybe tired and hungry at the same time. Can we maintain our emotional stability even in those moments? So I think it just sharpens your sword as a parent so much faster when you're willing to do something like that, travel internationally. Now, again, we talked about this in the other one, but it could be something as simple as like a dad taking 2 kids to the grocery store for the first time together. Like, I remember when I had to do that and I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting, you know? But there's lots of things that I think, as we've said before, when you're willing to do the hard thing, it just sharpens that sword way faster.
It reminds me of a study. You know those team building exercises where it's like we give you a box of toothpicks and sticky notes. And there's group A, group B, group C. Group A is a bunch of kindergartners, group B is a bunch of MBAs, and group C is a bunch of engineers. And you have 30 minutes to build the tallest tower. Who do you think built the tallest tower? The kindergartners.
Probably,
built
yeah.
it. And the reason is because they just started building. How do we? Oh yeah, they were just started trying shit. Whereas the MBAs sat there and spent the majority of their time building the perfect plan to build the tallest tower. There's like another version of this story or study where I think it was a college class, and the professor had split the class down the middle, and he graded them differently. One group was asked to make the most number of pots that they could during a period of time, and the other was asked to build the best quality pot that they could in a period of time. At the end of the course, who do you think built the best quality pot?
Probably the ones that built a lot.
The ones that were told to build as many as to create as many as
Yeah.
they could. And so the moral of the story is, You're waiting for conditions to be perfect because you want to execute whatever's in your mind perfectly, whether it's traveling with your kids or building a business or getting in shape. But actually, the way to get to the result that you want is to start trying and to try as many times and as often as you can as possible.
And be willing to be embarrassed during all of your attempts.
Yeah.
Whether it's in front of other people or yourself, like
Get that out of the way.
just get it out of the way.
The conditions will never be perfect where you get to avoid that.
Yeah.
You just don't get to skip that step.
Yeah. You can't, it's just, it's also a lesson in letting go of that control of those conditions. You're never going to control them,
Yeah.
so just let go of it. See what happens.
It's really cool, actually. I think on this podcast was the first time that I shared that Heather and I had started a new business.
Oh yeah, that's right. I want to hear about.
I think it was like
more about this.
Once we had maybe our first or second client, and I was like, yeah, we started a thing. I don't know if it's gonna work exactly or not, but that was us just starting to create pots, right? Like I'm not gonna sit here and build a perfect plan if I don't know that there's a demand for this in the market. Let me see how many people I can get to buy this service from us. So in March, first client comes in, Now we're in July 2024, and we're about to hit $500,000 in revenue. By October, we'll hit $1 million. And my last business, the one that I own, not a company that I worked at, it took us 4 years to hit that same mark. And it just, like, in my head, all I saw was the pottery story. Is like, I'm much better at making pots now. What took me 4 years last time has now taken me 10 months. And I can only imagine that in 1, 2, 3 years, maybe it goes down from 10 months to 3 months. And even before Prep to Your Door, the last business that you knew of, I had like I have a graveyard of businesses and side hustles, right? Just like every entrepreneur does. I had it made me think of a little tutoring business I had in college. And the first time I got paid $100 for an hour's worth of SAT tutoring. And I was like, whoa. Then, I had another business I started with my roommate, and I'll never forget the first week we made $1,000. And I was like, huh. And then with PTYD, we crossed $100,000. And I was like, huh. So now I'm like, I know how to make $1 million. I could make $1 million over and over and over again. Just give me an industry, give me a niche. I know how to do it. But the thing that I don't know how to do is make $10 million. I definitely don't know how to make $100 million. And I feel like not a beginner, but I feel the emotions and the fears of that somebody who's never made $1 million before. When I think about 100 million,
right.
Like, I concretely know how to do $1 million. I feel like pretty much 100% confident that I can do 10 million. I can see it. But to 100 million, I can't see it because I've never even ventured there before.
Right.
So I don't even know what to look for. And so I could continue to sit here and be like, that's not for me. That feels too big. That feels too far. But the benefit of having tried and failed and succeeded, and particularly the fail part, is that I know that all I need to do is keep moving in that direction. And one day we'll be sitting and having this conversation, looking back and being like, now I know how to build $100 million business. And so I've just been reflecting on it. It's like, it's not even about the numbers, because Prep to Your Door, we spent 7 years building, and I learned everything meaningful about business through that venture. I learned how to build a multi-million-dollar business. I learned how to raise money at the end. I learned how to hire. I learned how to manage dozens and dozens of employees. I learned HR, finance, marketing, customer service, all the tools and processes that go into it. I learned all of these things. And we won awards for it publicly, like best entrepreneur, like favorite entrepreneur, best sustainable business, like all of these things. Public, my identity was wrapped up in this thing, because publicly in Austin, that's how me and my wife became, known for the people that knew us. And then it failed. And the failure was public. Once the business ceased to exist, we're getting flooded with emails and messages asking what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's saying you're a failure. Even with my friends, let alone acquaintances and colleagues, there was a 6-month period of time where I could see everybody's, I mean, I could be making it up. It felt like the way people perceived me was slightly different, because before then it was like, oh, you're a successful business owner. And now they had to recalibrate their perception of me because the business failed.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what I was going to do during that time. I knew that it sucked. Forget the perception. The fact that I had set out to try to do something and then it closed down, and I never visualized that. It was awful. The moment we made the decision, I remember like for 24 hours, I just saw black. Like I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what my future looks like. I don't feel hopeless, but I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what next step I'm going to take is. So despite all of that experience, here we are again, 18 months later. And I knew in the back of my head, I was like, I'm not going to try another thing right now. I need to like recalibrate.
Mm-hmm.
I need to put food on the table, keep a house over our head, a roof over our head. But I don't have the entrepreneurial energy right now. Like I feel defeated. And the amount of energy that it takes to make a business successful is so consuming that I was like, I don't have that right now. But I knew in the back of my head that I was like, as long as I can just keep taking steps forward and try to take advantage of opportunities as they come, the next thing will appear.
Yeah.
And in March, when I said on this podcast that we started a thing, and I thought it was interesting, it just gained traction. And now it's here. Like I know this is here. This is going to be, it's already about to be bigger than the last business I spent 7 years building, potentially within, not, I don't think the first year, but within the first 15 months for sure, it'll be bigger.
What would you say are the maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things that were important things to carry over, or lessons that you learned from PTYD that has helped accelerate the growth in this one?
I think not only from PTYD, the business, but then I've worked at 2 other companies since then. And then I've had, some fractional work on the side. So I've been able to work with other companies. And the most important thing is a higher level of self-awareness of what I want to build and what I don't want to build. I wasn't clear on certain aspects of that with PTYD because I started it when I was 23 years old. I didn't know enough about life and I didn't have enough reps. But now I know that I actually love a service-based business. I actually love bootstrapping. Internal culture is a non-negotiable for me. And the way that we treat customers is a non-negotiable for me. And those things kind of seem obvious potentially on the surface, but I've been working with companies where that's not how it works. It's all about the money, for example.
Yeah.
But then you don't get repeat customers because they don't have a customer service ethos. I think I've shared on this podcast about one of the CEOs I worked with. The way he gave feedback was just awful, right? He would just roast people.
I actually just listened to that episode.
You did? Yeah. I mean, like a flamethrower. He'd just come in to fucking burn you alive. And I think his mindset was like, you can either withstand the flames or you leave. And if you leave, you weren't supposed to be here anyways. Fine. I'm not going to say whether that's right or wrong, but I know that's wrong for me. That's not how I want to treat my teammates. That's not the internal culture that I want to have. That doesn't mean we don't have accountability and standards of performance, but it's that's not how we like to treat people. I feel like you have to go through reps of doing things in a way that resonate with you and then doing things in a way that don't resonate with you. We've talked about it before, to be like, yeah, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
And so I've learned over the last 10 years of my career that, there's different ways of doing business. It's not necessarily right ways. You hear of CEOs that are great with their people and their customers, and then you hear of CEOs that are absolute dicks, like Steve Jobs. Both create success, right? Like we've got Apple products all around us, but it's just a matter of choice. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I don't want to live my life in a certain way. So I think that's one. And then number 2 is, I've also talked about in previous episode, is that So my wife and I are business partners on this one again. And going into the last business, we didn't know what each other's strengths and weaknesses were to the level of granularity that we do now. And so we are much better partners.
Mm-hmm.
Our dance together is way better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh no, you're good at legal side of HR. I'm really good at the people management side of HR. I hate the legal aspects of HR. It puts me to sleep. She gets into the details of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important because at our companies, we offer benefit packages that blow employees' minds. That's super boring stuff. But I'm glad that she does it. I get to take pride in it because I love telling our new employees, like, these are the benefits that you get. People fucking ride or die for that shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But then on the people management side, she's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to consistently manage people on a week over week basis without losing my shit.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, drain energy, get energy. I get energy from that. I love having like one-to-ones with people. So that's number 2, right? And both are just higher degrees of self-awareness for me. So
and
anyways,
years of experience.
Actually, just saying that out loud, I could probably keep going, and all of them will just be like, I have more self-awareness in X.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Which kind of, circling back, it's like, that's that idea of like, you just have to go through it. You just have to go through the hard things. You have to get the experience. You have to get the reps. Kobe, I always bring it back to athletes sometimes, but, Kobe talked about his workout schedule, and he's like, yeah, you could be the person that wakes up at 8, 9, 10 o'clock, get your first round of workout in at noon or whatever, noon to 2, then go have lunch, dinner, eat, whatever, rest, recover, then do another workout at 5, 6 p.m. at night, and then you're done. So you got, say, 4 hours in. He's like, but what if you get up at 4 a.m.? He's like, you get your first workout in at 4 a.m., done by 6, have yourself some breakfast, hang out, whatever, get your next workout at 10, like 10 to noon, have lunch, rest, recover, get another one at 2 to 4, and then get another one at 6 to 8. He's like, now imagine that over the course of a year, how much further ahead you are than another athlete.
And stack that up over 10 years. And
stack it up over 10. Yeah.
He had a whole extra career.
And then he's like, then the person, even if they try to catch up with you, they can't. They're so far behind that it just can't even happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually reminds me of the benefits of good parenting. So my dad has like a really funny memory of me. Actually, his friend has a really funny memory. He's like, I was Atlas's age. I was like 3 years old. And I like ran into the room and I was like, Papa, the NASDAQ is up. And I was like so excited. And like my dad's friend like never fails to bring up this memory for me. This like fucking naked kid runs into the room and is like, the NASDAQ is up. I don't know what the fuck that means, but obviously I'm watching my dad who watches the stock market every day and I'm like absorbing what he's absorbing. Whereas Heather didn't grow up in a house where, CNBC was playing every morning. And so she's learning about finance and the stock market, whatever, call it 20, 30 years later in her life. Whereas I was working with that information in my brain since before I have memories.
Right.
That doesn't mean that gap can't be bridged, right? It's hard to imagine how that doesn't give you a tremendous competitive advantage because, and you could apply that to everything. So in this example, I'm using the stock market, but you could use that for athletics. You could use that for reading. You could use that for math. You could use that for somebody who was watching their dad fix cars from the moment they were in diapers. Your brain gets to grapple with those experiences. So as it relates to what we're talking about and talking about parenting is like being very conscious of the environment that we're creating for kids is giving them reps before they even know they're getting reps, And
speaking to those reps, like going back to the trip, traveling internationally, those 2 weeks over there in France, I think that's why it's so valuable is that it's giving Casey and I reps literally like every minute of the trip. You have no chance to like get out of it really. You can't just quote unquote relax And so maybe in that 2-week period, we're getting 10,000 reps of something as parents, as opposed to 2 weeks at home where, we're in our regular life and everything's pretty chill and we have it controlled. So we might only get like 500 reps during that time.
I think I'd even go a layer deeper, that Atlas and Noble were getting reps watching their parents muster up the energy and courage to do a hard vacation.
1,000%.
Like that's just stored in them.
Yeah.
Whether they're conscious of it or not, when they get older, they will understand that type of behavior as normal.
Well, their demeanor and their energy on the flight back was quite a bit different than the flight there. Now, granted, that's only 2 international flights, and 2 weeks apart. But there was a pretty big jump in how they handled that flight home as opposed to the one there. And that's all it took, was just doing it at least once. And then same thing with the one flight we had to take in between, the smaller, shorter flight. It was I'm not gonna lie, it was tough. It was delayed 2-3 hours. We had to sit in that small gated area. Bunny's melting down, sister's melting down. Casey's like sick and injured, and I'm kind of having to handle it all. And then we get on the flight, and we have to sit on the tarmac for like 2 hours with the kids, and they're asleep. So I'm like, ugh. Like in a way, I'm like, oh, I don't like to call it a wasted nap, but it kind of is. Like we had planned on them sleeping on the flight. Well, they both wake up literally like right before the flight takes off, but they both did really well. Like Bunny for that 2-hour flight was fine. He just hung out, did a little iPad. Grandma came back and sat with him. So anyway, my point being is like, it didn't take many reps for them, or maybe it was all the reps that kind of didn't have to do with sitting on an airplane, but just the different reps of adaptability throughout those first 10 days that made those flights much more manageable and easier for them.
This reminds me of, I don't know if I've ever shared this, but before I started PTYD, I was working on an education business. I ever told you about that?
I don't think so.
So it was like an offshoot of the tutoring business that I just talked about. And one of the kids that I was tutoring for the SAT, in any business, you want to find like your ideal customer as quickly as possible. And I realized, at least at that time, like private school kids were the ones who hired SAT tutors. So the parents typically tended to be wealthier. Well, one of them was really wealthy. And she was like, hey, we're building a school in a refugee camp with like 2,000 orphans. Will you design the curriculum for it? Yes. So we did that. And like over the period of 6 months, I like got to watch how these 2,000 kids with no parents in a desolate country in the Middle East, like got education. And they were learning English, math, computer skills with tutors over Zoom. This is way before like Zoom was even a thing. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, this is really interesting. Like, I am getting paid from rich kids in a first world country and using the benefit of that to extend education to 2,000 times as many kids in an extremely bad environment. So I was really passionate about like, okay, private school, this, whatever. I didn't have enough experience to do anything with that at the time. But like it planted a seed in my heart where I know, if you ask me, why do you want to be a successful businessman? So my number is at minimum 100 million, at minimum. And why? I don't need $100 million for me personally. And actually 100 million is too low. I don't love to articulate this on a podcast, but I will because that's what you would want me to do.
That's right.
In the privacy of my home with my wife, I say I'm going to be a billionaire. And I actually feel 100% conviction that if I want to, I can. And the reason that I want to be a billionaire is not because I want $1 billion. It's because by the time, forget an age, but I have an age. There comes a point in my career where I don't want to be worried about making money anymore. I want to spend 50 years of my life just building schools for kids that were just like those first 2,000 kids of mine. Because it comes back to what I was talking about, my stock market story. I'm like, it's just so powerful. Some of the kids in that school had to leave. I'll never forget the story of one girl had to leave the school. She was like 11 years old because some far off family member got her married to secure her future. And like, that was wild to me.
That's crazy.
And then there was another kid, he was like similar age, and he was like, I can't come to school. I have to go do labor to like feed myself. And I was like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And so when I think about like my NASDAQ story is like, why would I want to become a billionaire? I'd want to become a billionaire so that I can spend as many years of my life with the skills that I've accrued to build organizations that are just fully focused on spreading that opportunity to kids that wouldn't otherwise have it.
Mm-hmm.
And that 100% fuels me. Otherwise, the number is like way lower in terms of what I need to be happy. But I don't want the incentives of the market, like, are your schools profitable or not? Because that skews it immediately.
Right.
It's like, no, this is purely a philanthropic effort, and my KPIs are kids educated. You know, if I have to choose anything in my life I'm not going to retire and just like, I don't know, go sit on a boat somewhere. I will do that. And also I just have the creative energy where I want to do stuff. Yeah. And that's what I want to do. And I want to do it on as squeeze the lemon. We talked about that in a previous episode. That's my lemon. Mm-hmm. I want to squeeze that lemon for all that I can. And then I can die happy. So yeah, that's wild. I've never shared that quite publicly. I think different friends know that passion of mine, but the thing is even as I say that, I don't think it's not anybody's responsibility to grasp the scale of the vision in my head. And that's the fun of being an entrepreneur, is if you really believe in your vision, then you have to put the energy towards actualizing it. Mm-hmm. And there's never an arrival moment where people are like, wow, you've arrived. It's actually just the pure reward of pulling this thing out of your head. And in this case, it would be one student turns into 10 students, turns into 50 students. Dude, you could stop right there. Like, if you could change 50 kids' lives that didn't have a path to a future at a higher economic level than they currently do, I mean, that's amazing work.
Right.
If you can do that for 500, 5,000, 50,000, 500,000 kids, that's fucking crazy. I don't know. I don't know if I believe in heaven or karma or reincarnation, but that sounds like you're probably ending up in the right end of.
Well, because you're also just not affecting that, say, 1,000 kids' lives. It's then the 1,000 that they touch, the generations after that.
Totally.
Like, how much can they change?
Yeah. I don't feel alone in this, right? Like, you're sharing that you have similar aspirations. And if I talk to most of my friends, I believe that they would have similar aspirations. I feel like we're a generation where we've had to reconcile, those of us that are ambitious have had to reconcile that ambition. And I find that a lot of us are reconciling that ambition by saying, well, I have this energy and I want to use the fruits of that energy to help other people. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about that is that I'm clear on the distinction, is that making the money is making the money, right? Then helping the people is helping the people. And what I said earlier is I don't want to make money in a way that harms people. Mm-hmm. But my businesses aren't philanthropic efforts. Like the agency that I'm running now, like, my goal is not to help lift people out of poverty. That's not the goal. They have a business need. I'm solving it. It should be more valuable than what they're paying me so that they continue paying me. And that's how I'm going to stack bread. And then I'm going to use that bread, because bread makes more bread. That's how capitalism works.
Exactly how it works out.
So you accrue wealth, you put it somewhere, it makes 10%, you take 5% out, you do stuff with it. And that 5% continues to build on itself. There are two sides of the capital equation, where you're trying to build wealth and then when you're managing wealth. We're trying to get to the other side of the equation where we have wealth to manage. Then it's help people. Ooh, I love it.
We could probably get into this a little more in another episode, but if you were to have, say, $1 million right now that you could go invest or start something or do something to start building more wealth, would you go the route of finding a need to just fill that need and make as much money as possible? Or is there some middle ground for you that's like, it's not all philanthropic. It's not all just capitalism. Let's build what's going to make us the most money. Like, is there some sort of love of a particular creative art or something in the middle that you're like, oh, if I had $1 million, I would definitely do this with it because I love it and I would make money doing it.
Do you want to answer that question for yourself?
There's a few things that I think I would really enjoy. Like Casey and I have talked about, obviously, like real estate or having Airbnb rentals or things like that. We like hosting. So the idea of creating some sort of, not just like a house rental, but not a full blown like hotel or a bed and breakfast, but something kind of like in between there, like a smaller boutique getaway type thing. We've talked about doing that together, partially because we like interior design too. So the idea of creating that together is a lot of fun. Now, would I become a multi-millionaire doing that? I don't know. But if I had $1 million right now, that might be a route we would take. That's sort of been our big one. But I don't, do I love that? Say like I love creating art here. Not maybe as much. I don't know. I haven't really done it yet though. So I don't know.
To your comment that would that make me a multimillionaire? People have changed people's lives irreversibly without money being involved in any way.
Right.
And so, I guess I just want to clarify, if anybody ever listens to this, I am not presupposing that you have to become a centimillionaire or a billionaire in order to change people's lives.
Right.
I just know my path.
Yeah.
But I have had people that have changed my life, and there's many other examples where you don't have to be rich to do that. That's just not true. And so if I just run with this example, if y'all took $1 million and went and built, a beautiful experience in Dripping Springs where you can host, I imagine everybody that would come in for an experience and leave would have, be enriched in some way. And also there's so many things that you can do with a spot like that, right? Like, it's really easy for people to be like, I need $100 million before I help anybody. But also I have friends, and then my version is like sponsoring somebody in AA, where your time can change somebody's life. Like I have friends that do like Boys and Girls Club, and they'll just go and spend 1, 2, 3 hours a week with some 12-year-old kid that they develop a relationship with.
I've been a big brother now for
there you go
6 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just have a certain type of friend, apparently. Like, people don't do that stuff. And, the opportunity to be giving in our day-to-day life, absent of big sums of money, is honestly, I think that turns the world around way more than some billionaire being like, I'm going to fucking fix everything.
Yeah.
I think both are there. I have like a very specific vision for education on what I want to do, but probably more powerful than that is the day-to-day stuff. And so there's nothing, but for me personally, there's been nothing more rewarding than helping other people that struggle with alcoholism or addiction, and just creating time and being available to them. That probably, I can feel the emotion of that experience far more deeply than anything else in my body.
Yeah, I think true change really happens on a more within your personal circle, your local community. Like, how much are you changing? I think people who are in politics that truly do want to infect change, they're like, do it on a local level. Like, you can't sit there and change the big picture of worrying about the president and who's in Congress and the Senate and things like that and national policy. It's like, just go change what's going on in your town, in your city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah.
All right.
Fun.